Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, and as usual, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video. And we have another classic horror legacy franchise that is returning with a new installment that's similar to a lot of other franchises. Came back with just the same title as the original, but also continuing the continuity of the other ones. And here we are now with the latest installment into the franchise, simply known as I Know What You Did Last Summer. Directed and co-written by Jennifer Kaytin Robinson, this film stars people like Madeline Klein, Chase Sui Wonders, Jonah Howard King, and has returning faces in the mix like Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. And before we get into my thoughts on the film, I just want to voice a complaint when it comes down to these re-sequels, these reboots that are following up the legacy franchise that came before, bringing back legacy characters, but also are kind of rebooting things for a new generation. I'm totally okay with that. I'm a big fan of these slasher franchises. If you guys have watched this channel over the course of the last 6 years plus that I've been doing it, slashers have had a very special place on this channel. I have covered dozens of them, whether it be the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, the Friday the 13th franchise, the Scream franchise, the Child's Play franchise. I haven't gotten around to this franchise yet, but I've covered plenty others. But when these franchises have come back in recent years, we've gotten Scream with its 5th installment that was just called Scream. We got Halloween returning with the 3rd film in the franchise to solely be called Halloween. And if you don't count the remake, the 2nd Halloween that we got, the most recent one, is now a sequel directly to the original Halloween, so you have to watch it Halloween, and it's just like, why? What happened to subtitles? What happened to numbers behind titles? I know from a studio perspective that they don't want people to be confused, and they probably want this to feel like a good way for people to jump in. But, you know, when you look at this franchise with I Know What You Did Last Summer, or its sequel, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, or the terrible direct-to-video I Always Knew What You Did Last Summer, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, whatever that one was called, that was absolutely terrible. I think they could have come up with something a little bit more original, something a little bit more fun that kind of played in that realm. But here we are. This is the first theatrically released film in the franchise since 2006, and yeah, you know, I won't lie, I was excited to check it out simply because I saw that Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. were going to be returning to their roles. But before we get into my thoughts on the film, let's get into what this film is all about. Set 28 years after the Tower Bay murders, a new group of friends in Southport accidentally kill a man and cover it up, only to be terrorized 1 year later by the hook-wielding fishermen. Julie and Ray return to help the new generation face their sins. So I'll just be completely honest about this. If you are a fan of the familiar just formula of this franchise thus far, where a group of younger individuals accidentally lead to somebody's death, some people in that group don't want to be there, some people have nothing to do with it, there's usually 1 or 2 people in the group that were pretty directly the reason that it happened, but they ultimately all choose to cover it up, which a year later has them kind of in the grasp of a murderer who has a hook and is dressed like a fisherman, then you'll enjoy this film. This is very much the familiar formula of the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise, brought to a new generation with modern technology, modern performances, and modern slashing, I guess you can say. And I went into this film, you know, hoping for a good time. If you guys have been following this channel, as I already mentioned, I'm a huge fan of slashers, so I'm a sucker when it comes down to these kind of films, because you don't really watch these kind of films the same way that you're going to watch like Oppenheimer or some sort of like art house flick. You know, you're coming into this expecting a group of characters, some to be unlikable, some to be likable. There's usually a final girl or two in the mix, and there's just those traditional horror slasher tropes, and amidst it, people are just going to get slashed up. And that's exactly what you get here with this new I Know What You Did Last Summer. In a lot of ways, this film doesn't necessarily add an abundance to the franchise, but I think for the most part, it does a good job when it comes down to being a legacy sequel that brings back a franchise that hasn't been very relevant in the last 10 to 15 years. Overall, I found the film to be well acted. I think that though, like a lot of slashers, you do have a cast of characters here that have a mix of unlikables, and just overall, I wouldn't say I was ever like super connected to any of the characters, which is typically what you have with a lot of slashers. But I think the performances are solid. I think everybody is fine in the film when it comes down to that. The cinematography is pretty solid and competently done as well, and there are some solid practical effects when it comes down to the blood, though some of the CGI blood is a little disappointing to see. That's always going to be a disappointing thing for me to see in horror films in particular, and specifically slashers, because the films that made this genre used so many great practical effects, and even the most dated films in this genre still look really good a lot of times when it comes down to the kills and are uncomfortable to watch because of those practical effects. And when you look at modern day slashers that have really kind of taken it to the next level, like the Terrifier films that are really known for their practical effects, it's no surprise that those films have really kind of scratched an itch for slasher fans, because they're going for it and it's all mostly practical and it looks just disgusting to look at. And I'll say that this film, for the most part, played it pretty safe when it came down to the kills. For the most part, some of the kills are pretty generic, you know, somebody getting stabbed in the stomach kind of kills, and there's moments where the CGI blood kind of takes away from it, but there are still some solid kills. There's one in particular that has to do with a character's neck that I found to be a fairly notable kill in the film. With all that said, you also have returning cast members, of course, like Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt. It was really nice to see them in this film. I think Freddie Prinze Jr. is definitely given the more meaty performance of the two of them, with Jennifer Love Hewitt in a lot of ways feeling like a bit of a glorified cameo, but it was nice to see them. It was nice to see them integrated into the story and not be relegated solely to a cameo, but it was nice that they were able to integrate them into the story while also having the new cast members be the ones that are really driving the story here. And you know, it's one of those movies that's hard to talk about because it is what it is, right? It's not a movie that has a lot of layers, a lot of depth. You know what the premise is. You're going in for another premise of a similar kind of thing. It's a whodunit. And I think for the most part, this film will keep you guessing. There are definitely elements about certain characters as you get later into the film where you can start to guess who the killer is in the film. But with that said, you know, there was a couple of nice misdirects that definitely had me starting to wonder, oh, is it this person? It's like, oh, that person got killed off now. I guess it's not that person. So I think the film did a good job of being a whodunit that leaves enough clues for you to start kind of figuring it out, but also puts a few decoys out there for you to start to think, oh, it's this person for sure, only for them to get killed. And you're like, oh, I guess it's not that person, which made it a fun watch. In a lot of ways, this is a pretty straightforward, generic slasher film, but I do think it's a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed myself while watching it. It's an entertaining time. I don't necessarily know that it's something you need to rush to theaters to see, but if you are a fan of this franchise, if you are a fan of the actors who are returning in this franchise, or if you're a fan of slashers, then I think you'll have a good time scarfing down some popcorn and watching some people get torn up in this film. There's definitely some solid kills in the film, though I do think that I would say majority of the kills are kind of unfortunately relegated to people getting stabbed in the side, people getting stabbed in the stomach, people getting stabbed in the back, whatever the case may be. And I wish they would have leaned into a few more creative kills in the film. But with that said, I do think it's a well-made film. It's an entertaining enough film. And I think, again, if you're a fan of slashers, there's fun to be had here, though I wouldn't say the narrative is incredible, and I don't think it really kind of takes things to the next level. In the world of legacy slasher franchises that have returned, like Scream or Halloween, I think this one is amidst the better ones, and I think it's really what it tees up at the end that made me the most excited. The film itself was fun. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed seeing the legacy characters, but there is a mid-credit scene that promises some more, which actually had me more excited than the ending of the film itself before the credits rolled. I did feel like the reveal of who the killer was and how that all kind of wrapped up in the last like 15-20 minutes was a little bit rushed and felt a little bit messy, but I do think that the journey overall was enjoyable, and the promise of more is what kind of got me more excited. So, you know, maybe we will see what we do next summer, which I don't know that movie is going to come out next summer, but you get the idea. I'm excited to see what we will be knowing that happened last summer or whatever the case may be. I'm trying to find a way to say what the title is in a funny way, but clearly it's not working out. Overall, I think that if you're a fan of slashers, if you like this franchise, you will enjoy it. If you do not like this franchise, if you do not like generic slashers or just slashers in general that have, generic slasher tropes, some jump scares that are just loud noises, then you won't enjoy this. But if you're going in to just watch people get hacked and slashed in that familiar, I know what you did last summer formula, you'll have a good time. So what are your thoughts on I Know What You Did Last Summer? Do you like that they brought back the original title? Do you think they should have done something else? Did you like the film? Did you not like the film? How did you feel about how they use the legacy characters? And are you excited like I am about what they're going to possibly do with the next film? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.